What is up, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of The Jersey Fund, a sports gambling podcast. It's the National Pastime with Petey here, talking about another MLB team. For those of you who just listened to our Red Sox episode, you know, rocking the same fit. Due to the technical difficulties, firing off a little 2-for-1 for you all here tonight on my walk. Again, trying to get rid of the double chin that you're going to see throughout the video here for those of you watching on YouTube. But regardless, thank you all. Glad to have you all here. And I want to give a big shout out and thank you to a lot of individuals who helped me hate this Cubs team a lot less. I'm not a Cubs hater. I feel like back in the day, you know, the White Sox-Cubs rivalry was a big thing in school, stuff like that. So obviously still rocking my White Sox gear. Feels kind of good to actually wear White Sox gear with some semi-pride for the first time in like probably 4 years. So obviously our GM still doesn't know if a dude is a switch hitter, hits right-handed, hits left-handed, whatever. We're still a dumpster fire, but we're less of a dumpster fire. But anyways, this video is about the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs. They play their games at Wrigley Field, and I have had some fucking unbelievable times at Wrigley Field. So shout out to Cockblock, that group there. Shout out to Updog. Shout out to Nedsta. Shout out to Jakey A. A lot of my boys from that Wrigleyville area, a lot of them are still Cubs season ticket holders. So I've had a ton of good times out in the bleachers. Wrigley Field is iconic, even if they charge you fucking $15 for a shitty fucking warm beer or $12 for a dog shit hot dog. The food over at the Cell on the south side is far superior, but still, the women, the town, Wrigleyville, Wrigley Field, it's fucking awesome. Had some great times there. Definitely going to make it back for a ball game this summer to go watch this Cubs team that we're going to be talking about here today. So the Cubbies, high expectations. I personally think inflated expectations. I think that if San Diego does not have a historic collapse in terms of offensive production from their best players, this Cubs team is not thought of as highly as they are this year. Now, that is not to be said that this is not a good Cubs team. So everyone loves to fucking freak out over me on Twitter or in other areas when I say that I think a guy on the Cubs is not a top 10 player or not this, not that. Freaking argument the other day with a guy about Nico Hoerner, where he said he was a top 10 player in baseball. I'm sorry, Nico Hoerner, very good ball player. Former first-round pick, by the way, so it's not like, you know, he's some nobody who became something. He was supposed to be a stud, and he's fine. He's really good defensively. He has great range. He kind of has a poo arm, but the range 100% makes up for it. He plays a really, really good second base, but he's a slapstick at the plate. He had an unreal end of the season for the Cubs last year that inflated a lot of his numbers and inflated a lot of Cubs fans' beliefs, I think, on Nico Hoerner. I mean, the guy's making $12 million a year to play, again, above average second base and produce a single here and there, maybe steal a bag. Like, it just doesn't move the needle for me. I don't think he's that kind of guy that you can hang your franchise on. Clearly, the Cubs don't think that most of the time either, because the past 3 seasons, he's hit in the 6, 7, 8 hole 75% of the time. So, again, definitely not a fucking top 10 player in baseball when you're barely a top 10 player on your own damn team. So, it's stuff like that that just fires me up about Cubs fans. Again, I love some of them. The boys I shouted out earlier, great dudes, but there's a lot of delusion, a lot of false hope in that city of Chicago. I feel sorry for y'all because I do think, again, this is going to be a year filled full of that. The Cubs at plus 1,800 to win the World Series, so just behind the Red Sox that we talked about earlier. But their win total is higher than the Red Sox at 88.5, probably because people think that division is shit, frankly. It's obviously nowhere near the division of the AL East, which is going to hurt that Red Sox win total a little bit, but I don't think the division is as bad as people say. I think that there are 2 starting rotations that are better than this Cubs starting rotation in the division, in the Reds and the Pirates. So Cardinals stink. The Brewers always find a way to still win 85 games. So getting to 88.5 might be tough, especially for this Cubs team. We can talk about the offense first. Never really been an Ian Happ guy. Again, another guy that just doesn't move the needle, finds way to have hot streaks and win over Cub fans, buys beers, throws baseballs in stands. So, like, seems like a good dude, but a lot of swing and miss, hits a lot of meaningless home runs, inflates his stats there. So, not huge on Happ. PCA, again, a very good defensive player at times. I also watch him drop some of the easiest pop-ups, but he can go get it out in center. But he is actually in the bottom 5 percentile for players facing 97 plus mile per hour fastballs. So the bottom 5 in terms of batting average, slug, OPS, all of that. And then bottom 5 percentile of, lefties facing lefties. So I'm not as high on PCA as some people are. I think he's going to be another guy that kind of slots into that 6 hole throughout most of the year. Maybe gets the occasional top of the order thing against a poo ball righty that he might be able to yank, out into the stands there. But again, not as high on PCA as some people. Now, Seiya Suzuki, I think, is a player who is damn good. He goes really, really cold at times, and I don't know why. It's got to be a confident, just like pitch recognition thing with him, because he'll go through stretches where he swings at every single slider that is thrown to him for some reason. But then he'll also go through stretches where he's super patient. He's driving balls to all fields. So I'm a big Seiya guy. I do think Seiya Suzuki can play at a high level, and I do think he can be a very good fantasy producer this year. So bigger on Seiya than most. Now that we're jumping into the infield, we already touched on Horner. Swanson, I read an article today talking about how he's going to cut down on his swing and miss. He's going to go to right field more. He's going to care less about power. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. I highly doubt that a 30-plus-year-old is going to change his game that much. Another guy that plays good enough defense, but does not move the needle for me with the bat often as he probably should, especially being, the former Vandy standout who was going to save the Atlanta Braves. So another guy that I'm just not in love with. But Michael Busch at first base, I think, is another guy, kind of like Seiya, who is slept on this team. I think PCA, Swanson, Horner, Happ, they get this spotlight for some reason, and I don't know why. They definitely do not deserve it for guys like a Seiya Suzuki or a Michael Busch. Michael Busch can play first base. He can hit both lefties and righties. He is not a one-trick pony. All he needs is more experience against lefties. Justin Turner should have never been getting those at-bats last year. I swear if this freaking Tyler Austin guy comes in here and gets those at-bats this year, that's insane. If they play Matt Shaw there over him, that's insane. Let Michael Busch play 160 games, hit in your 4-hole, and be a damn good ball player. That's all I'm going to say. If he gets that, he'll be a fantasy producer as well. So saying Busch, I think, can keep this offense afloat for most of the year. Carson Kelly, they're going to need another miracle year out of him, which I don't think they're going to get, but they might get 15 to 20 yabos, which is nice. Moises Ballesteros, good ball player. I think he's a guy with the bat who, might catch a hair, but is going to DH more times than not. I think he'll add some offense for them. Probably not be a fantasy relevant guy, but add some offense for them. And then the biggest piece, the guy who's kind of replacing the Kyle Tucker hype from last year, is Alex Bregman. Insanely large contract. Another guy that plays really good defense, but I don't know if at his age, in this market, having to be the best player on his team, if he's going to be worth it. He was never the best player in Houston. They always had guys better than him, and now you're slotting him in on this team and expect him to be the 3-hole, and they're hyping him up by showing his home runs off Jameson Taillon and other poo-poo pitchers out there in Arizona who were probably told, hey, lay him a fastball so we can post this on social media. So I don't know. I'm looking at a lot of projected numbers, and none of it really makes sense for me for Bregman. I think he's probably going to be overbought in a lot of fantasy leagues too. Probably a lot of people drafting him way higher than they should. So I'm not saying I'm out on Bregman. I'm not saying he's not going to have a fine year. Again, this is where Cubs fans will flip out. Like, yeah, I think Nico Hoerner's going to hit 260 and have, a 680 to 700 OPS. That's a fine year when you play pretty good defense. Do I think Alex Bregman will come in and hit 280 and have a 730 OPS? Yeah, probably. That's fine, but it's just not worth it for some of the prices you have to pay in fantasy, and it's definitely not worth it for their contracts. It's part of what's inflating this win total too. So in terms of the offense, you heard I've got some guys that I'm high on, but I've got other guys that I would just avoid, like a Bregman, like a Horner, like a Swanson, like a PCA. I'm just not buying in on those guys. So I think they're going to find at times this year that they're going to struggle to score runs. It's going to be a lot of swing and miss. It's going to be a lot of living and dying by the long ball. And I don't think this team is really built for that. So unless this pitching staff can really step up, I don't know if they're going to be able to get close to that 88.5 win total. So you're going to need big years from Justin Steele, who's coming off a lot of injuries. Cade Horton, who is a crazy hyped up guy right now, who's also probably going to go too high in drafts and isn't worth it, in my opinion. I hope he has that breakout year. I hope he, is the 2.7 to 3 flat ERA type of guy with 200 Ks this season. But you don't know until they produce it, and I haven't seen it yet. So I'm not necessarily buying into him either. Imanaga is going to be true, tried, steady. I like him. I like Shota. He's probably not fantasy relevant enough unless you're in some kind of quality start league. Matt Boyd, he's another guy that's going to be bought way too high in my opinion. He had his first healthy season since 2019. So in 6 years, last year, it was a damn good season. He's a damn good pitcher, but he struggles to stay on the field. So I'm not buying into him there. And then Jameson Taillon, who we mentioned earlier, is another guy who probably isn't going to be fantasy relevant, but despite underlying metrics normally being shit, he pitches to, the tune of a 3.5 to 4 ERA, throws you 160 innings. So again, this team feels fine, right? 90 ball games in the big leagues, you need to be better than fine. So I'm not picking them to hit that 88.5 win total. I'm staying under there. I'm not saying that you shouldn't bet them to win the World Series, because again, they've got some firepower when everything is hot. If all of a sudden PCA, Horner, Swanson, Happ are all swinging it at the right time in October, things can go the right way. But I don't think they have enough pitching. They don't have enough of those guys who can come in and just dominate a team for 6 innings with, striking out 12, that type of outing, unless Cade Horton becomes that. But that's still just one guy. So, sprinkle him at plus 1,800 at your own risk. I'm personally not. But I do think this ball club will win enough games because, again, some of this division is bad. The Pirates' pitching staff is unreal, but their bullpen kind of stinks. They can't hit. The Reds, they're always hyped up, and then they always find a way to be right around 70 wins. Cardinals stink, which is huge for Cubs fans because that rivalry still is semi-relevant. The Brewers are going to be there. They'll probably end up winning the division with 86 wins, and the Cubs will come in at 84. So it's going to be another one of those years in the NL Central, and I'm just not buying into the Cubs hype. I'm saying they're going to be fine. So Cubs fans, don't come at me and you'll want to hang me at the stake for this. They'll be fine. Can they piece together some exciting times? Yes. Are they probably going to have stretches where all of a sudden they're, 7-0 in a week? Yes. Are people probably going to be sending me a message saying, fuck you? Yes. That's fine. I'm used to it. I'm a douchebag. I'm a piece of shit. It's fine. But the Cubs ain't getting 80.5 wins. They're probably not winning the World Series. It's going to be really hard for them to just get around the Dodgers. We talked about that before. So I'm sorry, I guess, but not really. But one thing I am going to give you all is a best bet that is on the positive side. So everything that we just kind of leaned into there was the idea that this team is at times going to struggle to score runs and is going to kind of be able to keep teams in that 3, 4, 5 run range. So what does that mean? A lot of close ball games. I think it's going to be a really fun time in Wrigleyville, a lot of beers drank. And I do think the Cubs are going to come out on top more times than not. Again, I'm not saying that they're only going to be a 60-game winner, right? I'm saying they're going to be right around that 80 to 85 range, which is going to give plenty of possibilities to a guy that we have not talked about yet, and that's Daniel Palencia. This dude I actually love. He is a fucking flamethrower. He's like if Carlos Marmol actually knew that the ball was supposed to go over the strike zone. He's fucking electric. When he comes into the ball game, it's exciting. It's not quite Mason Miller good. He's not quite, as sharp with his off speed. The fastball does stay flat sometimes. It doesn't have quite the same jump and spin rate that, like, say, a Mason Miller does, but still fucking 101 miles per hour. So good luck hitting that, even if his slider isn't plus. So what I'm going to do for all of y'all is put you on to Daniel Palencia, 30 plus saves at minus 110. 35 is at plus 180. So I kind of like both those. I'm giving my best bet and my hammer as 30 plus. That's even money, minus 110. I don't think anyone's going to complain about that. So leaving you all at least with a positive note there to say that your closer is going to be a fucking stud and you shouldn't have to sweat out many ninth innings like you have the past few years with Ryan Presley and whatever fucking band of misfits y'all have been running out there. So high on Palencia. I do think he's a fantasy relevant guy too, so I would recommend getting him in leagues where saves matter. So 30 plus saves for him, under 88.5 wins, and a lot of beers drinking Wrigley. I'll be there. Hopefully you all see me there and shit on me, especially if the Cubs are already at like 92 wins, mid-September. For all my friends, my Cubs friends out there, I hope they are. However, as a gambling man and running a gambling podcast, I'm not going to bet on that. But anyways, until next time, everyone, hope you all have a great night.